Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and more Birthright as we continue working our way through the various Anshe. Today we have a massive one, and that is the Serpent, being simply known as the Serpent. We get some really cool artwork to go along with that as well. So let's jump right in. This is a very long one, but actually before we do, quick shout out guys, if you want to support the channel and see videos like this early, including some other exclusive content for Birthright, other D&D settings, and also other games we cover, check us out on our Patreon. All the support there really matters, and we got all kinds of different tiers with different benefits, but yeah, any and all support that you guys can throw us that way really helps, gets us to be able to track down all the old modules, things like that, and bring you more content. All right, let's jump in because this is going to be a long one. I am the voice of the Serpent, and you will heed my words and despair. The Serpent is a god unto his followers and a fiend unto his enemies. Those who do not bow down and worship the Serpent as a new god, coiled upon our lands and seas, will learn, much to their quaking terror, that he is the true heir of Azrai, and not some petty tyrant, as some fools would hope and suppose. The Serpent alone of the Anshalian was born at Mount Deismar and can assume the form of the great snake, which all truly wise folk know to be divine. In this form he can consume whole villages or strangle the life out of the world, but in his magnificence he chooses not to do so. The Serpent is a true god, and he will reward those faithful who serve him with their whole bodies and spirits. Take heed! The Messatian people live on under the Serpent's watchful gaze. The sons of the Serpent gain their righteous powers from his holiness, and their true faith is rewarded by his favor. The priest Lord Lakial rules the sons and pays homage to the Serpent, and I, who was once Aquila, speak with his true voice. Even the Basarji, who have not yet fully accepted the true faith of the Serpent, pay tribute to him, that they might deter his righteous wrath. The day is not long in coming when the sons of the Serpent shall go forth into the world and spread the true word of their God to all the peoples of Cerelia. Already the Serpent confers with the celestial brotherhood of serpents, and he foretells the approaching time of the great crusade. All resistance shall be swept away before his devoted, and the Serpent shall bring order to all peoples. Bow down to his holiness now, and spare yourselves from his wrath. Pretty crazy and wild stuff here, and you can already tell this is going to be a different type of beast, so to speak, when we compare it to some of the other Anshe that are out there. Known alternatively as the Serpent's voice, the Serpent's tongue, or the voice of the Serpent, Aquila is an apparently young Messatian woman. She is the spokeswoman for the Serpent, and she supposedly has his voice speaking through her to all the Serpent's subjects, but the select few actually admitted into the Serpent's presence. In recent years, it has been reported that only the high priest, a wizened old man named Thasio, who calls himself the High Son of the Serpent, a few of the high clerics, and Aquila herself have actually seen and spoken to the Serpent in person. Anyone else who has met the Serpent has really not lived to tell the tale. The sons of the Serpent devoutly believe that the Serpent has stopped showing himself to the people he governs because he has ascended to a heavenly throne and now comes to the mortal world of Cerelia in his tangible form only when it pleases him to do so. They profess that the Serpent, now a god in a pantheon of all serpent gods, rules over his domain from the heavens. Those who doubt the Serpent's divinity have a more pragmatic explanation. The Serpent, and some interesting artwork there too, Serpent has invented his own pantheon of gods and has inducted himself as a member. Whether he truly believes himself to be a creature of divinity is something no one but his closest advisors can say, and if Aquila, the priest Lord Lakial, and priest Lord Lakial believe this self-concocted myth, the Serpent can fool anyone in his domain, certainly. This always, thinking of the Serpent always reminds me back of like Thulsa Doom and like the old Conan movie and everything. But there are still a few questions that trouble the Serpent's detractors. What is this celestial brotherhood of serpents the voice speaks of, and why has no one else ever recorded the existence of such a pantheon? Has the Serpent made contact with some divine powers other than those previously known to Cerelia? Has he made some unholy bargain with them? If the Serpent is only an Anshe and not a god, how can logic explain the spells that the sons of the Serpent, the worshippers, are able to cast? If the Serpent himself is not divine, what power fuels their magic? That's definitely something to figure out. For centuries, the only news and stories that made it across the waves of the Bayer el Mahar about the serpent were ones that spoke of his utter cruelty, savagery, and inhuman ruthlessness in enslaving his once noble people. One can only hope that whoever, the serpent himself, the voice or another among the serpents chosen, has of late tempered the Anshe's legendary cruelty and man-eating tendencies, will continue to do so. While this makes his followers that much more loyal, and many now seem to serve him out of reverence rather than fear, it may also mean that the serpent could be undergoing another metamorphosis, perhaps one less dangerous to his Kanasi neighbors and Cerulean in general, or even more startling than the changes wrought at Deismar. So, let's jump in with some of the stats. Just again, these sort of like crazy high level powers of this particular Anshe. So right up there with the Gorgon. Intelligence 15, mainly active at night, considered carnivore, lawful evil, so that's something. Movement of 12 in all forms. Size, so 6.5 feet tall. In human form, large when kind of like the sort of half human serpent man type form. 9 foot tall there, or giant 50-foot long serpent. And you can see how the armor classes differ there too. So again, the old armor class system, so 2 here, I always equate that to like an 18 in the human or serpent man form, and then -4, which again, porting it over, so basically 24 as a serpent. Massive block there of 130 hit points. Saves, so it's considered a level 18 fighter / level 12 wizard, right? So another one of these super high class Anshe, kind of like Rove, right, is one of them. The Gorgon also is a fighter wizard, right? So potent stuff there. Thaco doesn't exist anymore, but 2 attacks in human form, 3 in serpent man, or 1 just as the giant serpent, which, you got other problems when you're dealing with a 50-foot long serpent there. The damage by attack, so with weapons, D6 or 2D8. So claw, or bite. 4d8 in the other form. Then we get into some crazy special attacks, right? So as a human, spellcaster, human and serpent man. Poison, serpent man and giant serpent form, and constriction, right? It doesn't need multiple attacks as a serpent. It can just constrict and or swallow someone whole here. Special defenses, you need a +2 weapon or better to hit it in all forms. It has a baseline 25% magic resistance, so pretty potent stuff there too. Crazy high level morale, and one of the larger Azrai bloodlines there, 77. Right? So if all that stuff wasn't scary enough, and we haven't even gotten into like spell casting or anything like that, then he has the blood abilities here. So blood form, charm aura, which maybe explains also why so many people are his followers. Divine aura as well, so that certainly plays into the god complex. Fear makes absolutely perfect sense, right? Long life, major regeneration, so as if everything else wasn't tough enough to deal with. Major resistance, magic, minor, there as a minor ability. And just regeneration, great. So it's going to be incredibly tough to kill the serpent. Super resilient, just with all the basic numbers here. But then you factor in some of these just bloodline abilities, and it's pretty potent too. It could be one where the PCs maybe late. There's a confrontation. Looks like they're winning. Serpent decides, well, maybe it is getting somewhat dangerous. Just going to try and escape, and then, well, maybe the players think, oh well. Looks like we maybe dealt a mortal blow or something like that. Yay, we beat the serpent, but then somehow miraculously returns, and maybe that adds to that aura of divinity. Well, you can't really slay a god, so it just keeps coming back and keeps coming back until the players really learn that this thing has just so many different types of regeneration and is ultimately going to need to be killed in some sort of permanent way. Huge block of XP there, 28,000. And then pretty crazy stats too. So on the human side, strength of 19, intelligence of 15, dex, right, 16, wisdom 18, con, crazy, charisma, off the chart. Serpent man abilities, look how things change there already. Very scary, right? Strength jumps up to 23. Intellect stays the same there. Dex goes up. Wisdom stays. Con massively jumps up, and then a little bit of a hit on charisma, right? Because it's kind of a half human, half serpent. So the serpent is an Anshe that stands out as something truly extraordinary, something more than half monster and less than half man. He's also something of a deity, at least among his own people on the Isle of the Serpent, and this worries many of the neighbors, rightfully so. These outsiders deny his divinity, yet they can't refute that his followers can, the priests can cast spells somehow. So either he's become something more powerful than an Anshe, or there's a lot of secrets here that just no one knows about, right? Somewhere between the two, there's the truth. Now, whether he's a deity or just an Anshe, he's dangerous, very dangerous if reclusive foe, and fortunately isolated by the fact that he's we shouldn't say confined to an island, but the fact is he is at least separated by being on an island from the mainland. It'd be truly scary if he was on the mainland. If he's forced into combat, he can fight as a serpent-headed humanoid using claws and fangs. He can shape change into a giant constrictor serpent, the likes of which have never been seen before in Cerealia. Yeah, 50 feet long. Absolutely bonkers. As a humanoid, he appears as a tall, well-proportioned man with the head of a giant snake. The serpent has not shifted back to his original form of a Messacian male in over 400 years as well. But whether he chooses not to or just can't is a mystery. As a serpent man, his body motions are smooth and precise, but his head darts about like that of a hunting snake, back and forth, with the tongue flicking out continuously. So in that form, he disdains the use of weapons. The claws and fangs can act as a +4 magical weapons, though, for what they can affect, so that's already crazy, right? So really a lot of your potential players' protections really don't mean much. He can hit +4 as far as requirements there. Quick and agile, the serpent is almost impossible to hit, and his smooth, almost perfect skin is actually harder than the densest plate mail. The serpent wears only a silk loincloth and a loose ornamental collar. He might also wear a weapons belt with a pouch attached, but what he keeps in the pouch is unknown. Perhaps that's where he keeps spell components. Many people have forgotten that the serpent is also a powerful wizard, as well as an Anshe and a warrior. So he's got it all, really. If a character is bitten by the serpent, and this is where, again, if all the other stuff isn't scary, well, let's get into like the poison bite here now. So if he's bitten in either humanoid or serpent form, saving throw versus poison is required at a -4 penalty. If the character succeeds, they take 2 through 8 points of damage, along with the actual bite damage itself. The poison character fights at a -2 penalty on all rolls until a neutralized poison or something to that effect is cast on him, or he gets at least 24 hours of rest. If the serpent fails his saving throw, if the character fails the saving throw, he takes the damage listed above, and if he survives, the serpent decides the character is worthy to serve him. In one round, the victim will then either change into a constrictor snake under the serpent's total control, or he will obtain his human form and be subject to a powerful domination spell. So, yeah, and that's another thing. Your party, if this happens to one of your party members while you're fighting, you could see a party member turn on you and just be under his domination. At this time, the serpent will either consume the victim or release him. There's no telling which he will choose at any given time. A wish spell is the only thing that can free the character from the serpent's control before the poison wears off. Very frightening. The serpent can also cast spells while in this humanoid form or the human form, and he casts them as a 12th level mage. So here's his sort of go-to repertoire of spells. So we got level 1s, Color Spray, Grease, Magic Missile ×2, Darkness, 15-foot radius, Ray of Enfeeblement, Scare, and Web. He's got Dispel Magic, so he's got potent offense and defense. Fireball, of course, Haste and Slow. Him with haste on himself would be, insanely frightening. Confusion, Luke's Resilient Sphere, Shout. Don't remember if Dig is actually still a spell or not, if we're in 5th. Speaking of 5th level, though, Animate Dead, Cone of Cold, Craziness, Domination, right? He's got that as his poison ability. Also, Monster Summoning 3, and then Monster Summoning 4. Again, can't remember if these are up to date like that in 5th ed, but something along the lines of that. Basically, as if he isn't frightening enough to deal with, right? If he feels maybe you're not even worthy of direct contact, he can, or if things are not going his way, somehow, hey, we're just going to summon a bunch of monsters and have them get in your way. All right, moving on. So should the serpent choose to change into his constrictor form, the danger only increases. Over the past few centuries, he's become more animalistic in his habits. He used to be lawful evil. Now he's almost completely chaotic in his monstrous form. He fights as an animal, squeezing the life out of his foes, then swallows them whole, and he can shape-change in one complete round of combat. If the serpent hits a character with the coils, They take d8 points of damage and save versus paralyzation or be trapped in those coils. Each round thereafter, and this is where it gets worse, right? You just think, oh, it's d8. We're decently high level, not a big deal. Well, every round thereafter, 2d8 automatically, and then they have another chance to save and escape. If the character has a strength of 19 or higher, they can add half their strength damage bonus to the saving throw. The Serpent can hold and constrict up to 6 man-sized creatures at once. Think about that. That's insane, right? And again, it's 50 foot long, but yeah, that's a whole party, right? Characters held in the coils are virtually immobile. They can't attack, defend, draw weapons, or cast any spells that require the use of components. However, they are protected from other external attacks by the Serpent's own armor class. Yeah. So, a wonderful consolation prize there that, hey, you're protected from other stuff. The Serpent, like a few other Anshe, has become more animalistic and less human over the years. So yeah, there are some that seem to be devolving a little bit in that sense. He's taken on a snake's habits. He's primarily nocturnal, dislikes going outside during the daytime, and basically is actually just uncomfortable in open spaces or broad daylight, and that's maybe something that if the party were able to somehow clue into that, that could be a potent strategy if they were to attempt to assault the Serpent himself. So this may be the reason that he speaks only to his followers through the voice. One final irony, once a great Messatian sea captain, the Serpent is building a great armada to invade his coastal neighbors. Frightening, but it's highly unlikely that he will captain any of the ships himself, even on a nocturnal voyage. All of his blood abilities also can be used in all 3 forms and in conjunction with other abilities. He can also speak in either form, though he is difficult to understand because of his spitting and hissing. If the voice is nearby, she usually speaks for the Serpent or reiterates something clearer. So, very frightening stuff should that invasion happen, right? And that could be, there should always be little rumors about that the the DM can sprinkle into campaigns in these territories. The realm itself, which we'll get to at some point as well. The Isle of the Serpent, it's east of Gamura in the Ajari Deeps. Obviously not available for PCs. Overall, lawful evil. There's 2 areas on the isle, Kalyana, which is level 1 province, and Messatium, the civilized province, level 6. No matter where you go, though, the Serpent's presence is everywhere. The Sons of the Serpent are the police force and control all the law there, but yield regency to the Serpent himself, so they don't have regency points. The Sons also have a large series of temples throughout the island, and worship at these is mandatory. Attempts have been made at expanding the worship, and there are 1 or 2 small temples on the islands off the coast of Gamura and Kurain, with small enough followings not to attract attention of the region's political and religious leaders. But yeah, so again, going back to like Conan, right? You could have this sort of like spreading cult almost of like Serpent worshippers, and really the danger there. So that could be a fun little insidious threat. And who doesn't like a good cult threat in D&D? Guilds. The Society of the Serpent, the Thieves Guild of the Domain, dominates the traffic on the island and much of the coastal lands along the Baer El Mahar. If anyone seeks to do trade, whether honest or illicit, they have to deal with them first. This isle is the only area where they operate only as openly as a true guild. Anywhere else, basically, it's Thieves Guild. The sources, the northern province is almost totally uninhabited as per the Serpent centuries old orders, and this provides him with a powerful level 8 source for magic. So again, if all the other things aren't frightening enough, and again, he doesn't have a huge territory, right? So if we look on the sort of map here, right, it's thankfully, blessedly, just like those couple of islands, the little small ones, and then the main island here with the 2 provinces. But the fact of the matter is, well, he gets a level 8 source, and he'll realistically have access to all realm spells as well. So yeah, any attempt to invade the Serpent's Isles is going to be one crazy adventure and one epic undertaking there. As if, again, his own personal abilities aren't enough, he can deal with a lot of threats by just sending in employing various realm spells. So he could even presumably, if the DM warranted it, use the raised dead or the undead summoning ability there as an army as well. So there's just so much crazy stuff that could be done there. Regency, got 21 generated, 100 accumulated. plus the 30 from the vassals, and 25 from the Society of the Serpent's holdings and their influence, right? So he's got virtually unlimited resources. Again, crazy for such a small territory. Also, quite a bit of gold, and then also from the vassals, right? So there's no limit really to what he could do even with just such a small territory. Does have an army too. Again, very small territory, but if he's planning on an actual invasion with building up that navy, it's not going to be some token force or even just like cult fanatics or anything like that. He's got 10 units containing 6 infantry, 3 units of elite serpent guards, right? We've seen the card for that, and also a unit of artillerists. The navy is also, again, bigger than really what we've seen with any of the other nations that we've covered so far in the first part of the Kanasi, right? He's got 4 dhows, 8 serpent galleys, and 5 duras, all complete with crack crews. So, again, very well-trained and functional. This isn't some third-rate force that he has assembled here. So, the lieutenants, right? Very little is known about Aquila, the voice of the serpent, but potentially a level 2 priest. Seems to have given over her entire identity to the service of her master. Everything she says is attributed to the serpent, though it's unlikely they have some sort of telepathic bond. Likewise, Aquila doesn't seem to be dominated by the serpent. She serves him for other reasons, and also is currently the youngest of the inner circle, but is accorded a great deal of respect despite her youth. Thassio, the high son of the serpent, was level 6 priest, a little bit of a bloodline, lawful evil, runs the Sons of the Serpent cult, and is dominant in its priestly hierarchy. He and his clergy control much of the day-to-day happenings and day-to-day business in the serpent's domain. In his words, a god need not be troubled by these petty concerns of mundane mortal life. The sons there worship the serpent completely, and they're rewarded for their devotion. They make up the ruling bureaucracy, and those that progress into the priestly arts can cast up to 5th level priest spells. And again, that's that real mystery. Is he a god or not? Because somehow they are deriving priest spells. Now, of course, those who violate the serpent's or Thassio's rules of order and compliance find themselves serving their god in another way. So human and demi-human sacrifices are common punishments on those islands. And that could be something, too, that players should be, if they find themselves somehow adventuring on here, and or traveling for whatever reason, that should be something that's very quickly brought to their attention, or they should really pay attention to looking at, so that here there is sacrifice being practiced. Then, other important NPCs. Darius Asparta, is a level 13 thief, bloodline there, neutral evil as well. That's a crazy high level. Is the native Massatian leader of the Society of the Serpent, the deadliest guild of assassins and thieves along the whole southern coastline here and beyond. He's a master of poisons, which is how he came to his position of power. He does secretly plot to slay his master, the Serpent, but delays for fear that he may be found out. He continues to plan, though, and waits for the right time to strike. So yeah, very much a master level thief there, very high level, and it's a bold plan to say the least to try and slay your master, especially presumably via poisons somehow, assuming that that can be something that maybe the serpent is also somewhat immune to poisons. That could be something worth exploring as well, and maybe when he does make his attempt, it's just a complete another failure, but could be a potential source to cultivate if there was maybe a conspiracy trying to be brewed to deal with the serpent. That could be a fun sort of oh crap moment, where maybe the plan is hatched and tried to execute it, and it then just goes horribly wrong, and the serpent goes into a rage and strikes. Now, the domain itself, the isle is a lush, warm island covered with mountainous forests, steep gorges and waterfalls, and the overgrown remains of the fallen Massatian Empire. Aside from the serpent's worshippers, there's no people of Massatian descent throughout Cerealia. In decline as a sea power, the culture and people died out roughly 500 to 600 years after Mount Deismar and the last and greatest outing of the entire Massatian fleet. The ruins of the empire are high in the mountains as well as just outside Massatium. Rumors of lost treasures and ancient magics may lead those to explore there. Again, great adventure hook just to bring them in there, right? Especially when so little is known about that culture and that people anymore, that some of these rumors should be quite enticing. But yeah, so basically it's your somewhat typical crazy and wild jungle adventure, so all kinds of hidden traps, other dangers, right, that could still be active after 1,000 years, and a lot of people go there to adventure and don't come back. Now, with the bulk of the population limited to the southern half of the island, many of the former roadways, buildings, and small outposts of the Messations are basically, been reclaimed by the jungle. What was once a center of learning 1,400 years ago is now a vine-wrapped ruin and home to a wide variety of large apes as well, so dangerous stuff there. Folks also talk of various creatures that wander the northern jungles of the island, from wandering ghosts of the bygone days to giant vampire bats or even invisible apes, ghost apes or something like that. Frightening, but also fertile ground. The DM can go wild with that. Now, the capital, Messatium, the city is built over the ruins of the earlier capital of the empire, and the Serpent's Palace is one of the few surface buildings that survives intact from the days of empire. Under the palace in the city are miles and miles of labyrinths and tunnels and dungeons that the Serpent now uses as his layers rather than occupy the above-ground structure. And that could be one, too. Again, maybe the characters are adventuring and actually thinking, like, oh, maybe let's go try and encounter the Serpent, hunt him down, right? Maybe we think we've got a plan, and they just don't find him up above. But venturing down into the labyrinths, that should be increasingly apparent that there's just so much there. It's going to be hard to map it all out. Should they even live that long? Should they venture down below? But again, at some point, the players, if they're not really keeping track of their paths and everything, should start to feel like, oh, we're lost. But maybe there's increasing signs of activity that might be related to the Serpent. A lot of maybe dead carcasses, who knows what, signs of other brutality, but that should really quickly, almost like horror movie tropes, right? But bring in the fact that, we're not only are we lost below here, we don't know what's really down here, but maybe we do get the feeling that we're slowly being hunted as well. That could be incredibly frightening. Imagine going down these labyrinths and kind of like again, just one more time going back to Conan, that sort of large snake from the original movie, but in this case, the Serpent, right, this much bigger beast here is hunting the players through all these labyrinths and tunnels. That would be incredibly frightening. So that could be a fun chase as well, just to try and get the hell out. So there's other towns in here. Kaliana, trade goods, right? Doesn't really import or export any goods to or from the island. But again, you do have that Thieves Guild and sort of somewhat minimal trade that they may do illicitly, but no allies, of course. Enemies. So the surrounding Isles of Gamura and Surien have kept the Isles of the Serpent and its fanatical populace under close scrutiny for centuries. It's one of the least active of the Anshe, but residents of the two closest neighbors say it's only a matter of time before they go on a rampage. And very much building that navy, and has a potent military force there too. So both countries currently maintain small naval forces in addition to normal trade vessels to protect the coast against the Society of the Serpent's raids. So there is that already. And then finally, many mainlanders believe the Serpent's bulk and fierce fighting capabilities have dulled its wits, turning it into more of a true snake, which could be a fortunate thing if it's true. However, when in human or humanoid form, and again, it hasn't been in human form for apparently several centuries, it is one of the most meticulous and far-sighted planners this world has ever seen. While many Annuirians quake at the multi-layered intrigues of the Gorgon, the Serpent's plans and strategies are best described as coils within coils within coils, of course. So, very nasty, very unique Anshe. Oh, and then wanted to show that too. So really cool artwork there. So again, very ancient, old world style to the architecture there of that former the Messatian capital. So yeah, it's such an interesting opponent, right? We have the fighter wizard hybrid like we've seen with some of the other high level Anshe. So we have that. Also just the sort of raw physical abilities, the fact that it can change. So there's really it's one Anshe, right? But there's really 3 different forms. So it's 3 different types of encounters really that you could have. It's not currently threatening its neighbors really that much, aside from these little guild raids and stuff like that. But it does have a potent army. You've got a snake worshipping cult here. It's maybe got some pseudo divine aspects to it, right? It has the priests that are able to cast spells somehow. There's just so much interesting stuff going on here, but it's also sort of this like, you know, far off jungle island mystery with, again, like sort of the ruins of a previous older civilization there, which could draw a lot of people to it with potential magic and other treasures and stuff like that. So there's just so many little things going on here. But if you're running one of the realms near there, obviously you've got a real threat off the coastline here, in addition to anything else that's on the continent itself. So all in all, one of the craziest, coolest Anche. Let us know, guys, if you've run the Serpent in any of your campaigns or how you would try and incorporate that. Hit us up in the comments, like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.